The Gospel of John is unlike any other book in the Bible. While Matthew, Mark, and Luke focus on telling us what Jesus did, his miracles, teachings, and life events, John takes us deeper. He pulls back the curtain and reveals who Jesus truly is. Right from the first sentence, we are not introduced to a baby in a manger or wise men following a star, but to something far more profound. John opens with the words, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." John 1:1. In one bold statement, John tells us that Jesus is not just a wise teacher or a miracle worker, he is God himself. He existed before time began, before creation, and through him all things were made. This sets the tone for the entire gospel. John invites us into a cosmic reality where time, space, and all creation find their meaning in Jesus. He is not just part of the story, he is the author of it. Every sign and miracle, every word he speaks, is not just about changing circumstances, but about revealing eternal truth. Throughout the book, Jesus is described as the light that shines in the darkness, the bread that satisfies the deepest hunger, and the life that brings true transformation. What makes this gospel so special is that it is deeply personal. John doesn't simply want us to admire Jesus from a distance. He invites us to step into a relationship with him. The purpose is clear. John writes so that we might believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing, we might have life in his name. John 20:31. This is not about temporary inspiration or religious tradition. It is about entering into the life-changing reality of knowing the one who created you. John's gospel is also full of intimate encounters. We see Jesus meeting people where they are, whether it's Nicodemus, the Samaritan woman, or the doubting Thomas. Each interaction reveals more of who Jesus is and how he meets the deep needs of the human heart. Ultimately, the Gospel of John is an open invitation. It invites every reader, whether first century or today, to go beyond simply knowing about Jesus and to truly know him, to experience his light, his love, and his life. It shows us that Jesus is not just a figure from history. He is the eternal Word, still calling each of us into a relationship that transcends time. John wasn't always the gentle, loving apostle we often picture when reading his gospel. In fact, he started off as anything but calm. He was a fisherman, strong, passionate, and fiery. Alongside his brother James, John worked the tough, gritty life of casting nets under the hot Galilean sun. That was his world until the day Jesus walked by and said, "Follow me." Without hesitation, John dropped everything and stepped into a journey that would change him forever. At the beginning, though, his transformation wasn't immediate. Jesus even gave him and his brother a nickname, Sons of Thunder, Mark 3:17. It fit. John was bold, intense, and sometimes reckless. Once, he even asked Jesus if they could call down fire from heaven to destroy a Samaritan village that didn't welcome them. Luke 9:54. He was passionate, but his passion wasn't yet shaped by love. But everything started to shift the more time he spent with Jesus. John wasn't just a witness to miracles, he was close enough to feel the heartbeat of Christ. He leaned on Jesus at the Last Supper. He stood at the foot of the cross when others ran away. Jesus trusted him so deeply that, in his final moments, he looked at John and said, "Here is your mother," entrusting Mary into his care. John's fiery spirit was slowly refined by love. He didn't lose his passion, he redirected it. By the time he wrote his gospel, he wasn't a son of thunder anymore. He had become the apostle of love, the one who wrote again and again about loving one another, just as Christ had loved us. What caused that change? It wasn't just Jesus' teachings, it was the way John experienced Jesus' love firsthand. He saw how Jesus loved the outcast, forgave the sinner, and sacrificed everything. And that love reshaped him from the inside out. John's story is proof that transformation is possible for anyone. No temper is too strong, no ambition too wild, and no past too messy for Jesus to redeem. If he could turn a son of thunder into the apostle of love, he can reshape us too. His love doesn't just change what we do, it changes who we are. The miracles in the Gospel of John are more than just impressive acts of power, they are signs, each one pointing beyond the event itself to reveal who Jesus truly is. They are windows into a greater reality, inviting us to see the heart of God at work in the world. John's Gospel begins with Jesus turning water into wine at a wedding in Cana, John 2. At first glance, it might seem like a simple act of hospitality, but it's so much more. In a moment of crisis, when the wine had run out and shame was looming over the hosts, Jesus quietly turns ordinary water into the finest wine. This miracle wasn't just about saving a wedding, it symbolized the arrival of a new covenant, one filled with joy, abundance, and overflowing grace. Later, in Capernaum, a royal official begs Jesus to heal his dying son, John 4. Jesus simply speaks, and miles away, the child is healed. This sign shows the power of Jesus' word alone. He doesn't need to be physically present to bring life. It's a reminder that faith often means trusting His word even when we cannot yet see the result. At the pool of Bethesda, Jesus heals a man who had been paralyzed for 38 years, John 5. In a place where the sick gathered, hoping for a miracle, Jesus chooses the one who had lost hope. With just a word, He tells him to rise, pick up his mat, and walk. Yet, instead of celebrating, religious leaders criticize Jesus for healing on the Sabbath. This miracle challenges the idea that rules matter more than compassion. Jesus shows that love and restoration are always His priority. One of the most well-known signs is the feeding of the 5,000, John 6. Faced with a hungry crowd and only 5 loaves and 2 fish, Jesus multiplies the little they have into an abundant feast. This moment reveals that He is not just able to meet physical needs, He is the bread of life, the only one who can satisfy the deepest hunger of the human soul. John's Gospel includes many more signs: walking on water, giving sight to the blind, even raising Lazarus from the dead. Yet in every miracle, the message is the same. Jesus is more than a miracle worker. He is the source of life, hope, and transformation, calling each of us to trust Him with the impossible. One of the most powerful and unique features of the Gospel of John is Jesus' repeated use of the phrase, "I am." These statements are not just poetic words. They are bold, life-changing revelations of who He is. Every time Jesus says, "I am," He is reaching deep into the human heart, addressing our deepest needs and longings. When Jesus says, "I am the bread of life," John 6:35, He is speaking to every soul who has ever felt empty or unsatisfied. He isn't just offering daily bread, He is offering Himself as the nourishment our hearts crave. He alone fills the hunger that nothing in this world can satisfy. Later, Jesus declares, "I am the light of the world," John 8:12. In a world full of confusion, fear, and spiritual darkness, His light shines clearly. He does not promise an easy life without struggles, but He promises that if we follow Him, we will never walk alone in the dark again. His light guides us, comforts us, and exposes the path to life. In John 10, Jesus offers 2 more powerful images. "I am the gate, and I am the good shepherd." As the gate, He is the only way into the safety and peace of God's presence. As the good shepherd, He knows us by name, cares for us deeply and lays down his life to protect his sheep. These words show his tender love and personal commitment to each one of us. Standing outside the tomb of his dear friend Lazarus, Jesus makes perhaps his most astonishing claim. "I am the resurrection and the life." John 11:25. In a world marked by death and loss, he boldly declares that death is not the end. Through him, there is life beyond the grave, life that is eternal and victorious. Before his crucifixion, Jesus tells his disciples, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." John 14:6. He is not just showing the way, he is the way. In him, we find the only true path to God, the ultimate truth that anchors us, and the life that restores us fully. Finally, Jesus says, "I am the true vine." John 15:1. Just as branches depend entirely on the vine for life and fruitfulness, we are called to remain in him, drawing daily strength, love, and purpose. Each of these "I am" declarations is an invitation not just to believe in Jesus, but to live in relationship with him, fully nourished, guided, and transformed. One of the most moving aspects of the Gospel of John is how Jesus meets people personally. He doesn't just preach to the crowds, he looks individuals in the eye, speaks directly to their hearts, and addresses the hidden struggles they carry. Each encounter in John's Gospel shows that Jesus is not distant, but deeply personal and present. Nicodemus, a respected religious leader, comes to Jesus under the cover of night. John 3. He is full of questions, but also full of fear. Jesus meets him right where he is and tells him something radical. "You must be born again." This wasn't about more rules or religious knowledge, it was about a spiritual transformation. Jesus invites Nicodemus to experience new life, not through effort, but through the power of the Holy Spirit. Later, we see signs that Nicodemus's heart was indeed changed as he publicly defends Jesus and even helps bury his body. Then, there's the Samaritan woman at the well, John 4. Rejected by her community and weighed down by a broken past, she comes to the well alone. Yet, Jesus is waiting for her, not to condemn her, but to offer her living water. He reveals that he knows her story, every painful detail, yet still offers her hope. In that moment, she runs back to her village, transformed, becoming the first evangelist in John's Gospel. Through her, many others come to believe. We also meet Thomas, often remembered as Doubting Thomas, John 20. He struggles to believe that Jesus has risen unless he can see and touch for himself. Yet, when Jesus appears, he does not scold Thomas. Instead, he gently invites him, "Put your finger here, see my hands." Jesus meets Thomas's doubt with compassion, and Thomas responds with one of the most powerful confessions in Scripture, "My Lord and my God." Each of these stories shows that Jesus knows us, our doubts, our failures, our deepest needs, and he meets us anyway. He does not turn away the confused, the rejected, or the skeptical. Instead, he invites them into relationship and transformation. John's Gospel makes it clear, no one is too far, too broken, or too uncertain for Jesus. Whether you come with questions, wounds, or hesitation, he welcomes you. These personal encounters are not just stories, they are invitations for each of us to experience his love firsthand. The death and resurrection of Jesus are the heart of the Gospel of John. They are not simply the tragic end of a good man's life, they are the ultimate demonstration of love, sacrifice, and victory. John walks us through these final moments with tenderness, showing us not only what happened, but why it matters for every one of us. As Jesus stands before Pilate, he does not resist or defend himself. He calmly declares, "My kingdom is not of this world." John 18:36. Though innocent, Jesus willingly walks the path of suffering, fully aware of what lies ahead. He is beaten, mocked, and crowned with thorns. Yet his focus is not on himself. It is on fulfilling the Father's will and opening the way for our redemption. When Jesus is nailed to the cross, John shows us a Savior who is still thinking of others. Even in the midst of unbearable agony, he looks at his mother and the disciple he loved and says, "Woman, here is your son. Here is your mother." John 19:26-27. In his final moments, Jesus is still caring for those around him. Then comes the powerful declaration, "It is finished." John 19:30. These are not words of defeat but of triumph. The work of salvation is complete, the debt of sin paid in full. But the story doesn't end at the cross. On the third day, the stone is rolled away. Mary Magdalene, in grief, discovers the empty tomb. When she meets Jesus alive, calling her by name, the world changes forever. John 20. Death has lost its power. Jesus is not just a martyr, he is the risen King. His resurrection is personal and transformative. He appears to his frightened disciples, locked away in fear, and says, "Peace be with you." John 20:19. He shows them his scars, proof that his suffering was real, but also proof of his victory. He even invites Thomas, who doubted, to touch his wounds and believe. In the Gospel of John, the cross is not the end, it is the doorway to life. The resurrection is not just a miracle. It is the promise that sin and death no longer have the final word. Jesus offers new life, forgiveness, and hope to all who believe. His victory becomes our victory. The empty tomb is the proof. One of the most touching moments in the Gospel of John is the restoration of Peter. After boldly promising to stand by Jesus no matter what, Peter had failed. On the night of Jesus' arrest, fear overcame him, and he denied knowing Jesus not once, but 3 times. When the rooster crowed, Peter was left crushed by guilt and shame. It could have been the end of his story. But in John's Gospel, failure is never the final word when Jesus is involved. After the resurrection, Jesus meets his disciples on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, John 21. They have returned to fishing, perhaps unsure of what to do next. All night, they catch nothing until a man standing on the shore tells them to cast their nets on the other side. Suddenly, the net overflows with fish, and John realizes it is the Lord. Peter, without hesitation, jumps into the water and swims to shore, longing to be near Jesus despite the weight of his past failure. There, on the beach, Jesus prepares a simple breakfast of fish and bread. Around the fire, the same kind of setting where Peter had once denied him, Jesus now gently restores him. He doesn't shame Peter or bring up his failure directly. Instead, he asks a simple but piercing question. "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" John 21:15. Peter, likely holding back tears, replies, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus asks him again, and then a third time, once for each denial. By the third question, Peter is grieved, but he answers again, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." With each answer, Jesus responds with a commission: "Feed my lambs. Take care of my sheep." In this moment, Peter is not only forgiven, he is restored. Jesus turns his failure into a new calling. The one who once denied knowing Jesus is now entrusted with leading and caring for his followers. Jesus shows that his love is bigger than our worst mistakes. Peter's story is a powerful reminder that no failure is too great for God's grace. Jesus doesn't just forgive us, He restores us and invites us back into his purpose. Like Peter, we too can find that our brokenness is not the end, but the very place where grace begins. As the Gospel of John comes to a close, it leaves us not just with a story, but with a clear invitation. Every miracle, every personal encounter, every word Jesus spoke was recorded for a purpose. John tells us plainly, "These are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name." John 20:31. The purpose of the gospel is not just to inform our minds, but to transform our hearts. John is not writing as a distant historian. He writes as someone who walked with Jesus, who leaned against him at the Last Supper, who stood at the foot of the cross, and who ran to the empty tomb. His words are full of urgency, love, and hope, because he knows this is not just a story, it is life itself. John's message is timeless. The hunger for meaning, for love, for purpose, and for life that he writes about is still the hunger of our hearts today. We live in a world filled with questions, uncertainties, and brokenness, just like the people John wrote to. And just like them, we are invited to meet the one who is the bread of life, the light of the world, the good shepherd, and the resurrection and the life. The question is not just, do you know about Jesus, but do you know him personally? This is not about religion or rituals. It's about relationship, one that brings hope beyond death, peace beyond circumstances, and love beyond human understanding. Think about Peter, the disciple who failed yet was restored. Think about the woman at the well, ashamed yet loved. Think about Thomas, doubting yet embraced. Their stories are not distant. They are our stories. We all have moments of failure, shame, or doubt. Yet, the Gospel of John shows us that Jesus meets us right where we are and offers us new life. The story of John ends, but yours is still being written. The same invitation is open to you today, to believe, to follow, and to find life in his name. No matter who you are or what you carry, Jesus invites you into the story of grace. Will you accept it?